Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love? Talking about games. And it seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 4,610 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. Wow, the April Fool's video did about as well as I thought it would, especially given that it got copyright claimed. So, sorry guys for no video game related video last week. Don't worry, that was a one-off, and we are back to the Switch. And there's been some big news on the Switch over the last week. The Switch 2 was given the full red carpet treatment. They announced pre-orders were going live on the 9th of April, and then they backtracked on the pre-orders. Is that because of tariffs, or is it because of the backlash? Who knows? But rather than do a video on that hot topic that probably would have gotten more views, I talked about old movies. What are you gonna do? But today, that's not what we're talking about. We are taking a look at another 10 Switch games that you should pick up before the prices go up. Alright, let's take a look. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
So one of the cool things that was announced during the Switch 2 presentation was a sequel to a game that a lot of people forgot came out on the Switch. So back in 2017, 2018, there were a couple of not semi-stealth dropped games, but games that got announced for the Switch first that then became huge. Things like The Messenger, but there were other ones like Astral Chain that kind of got announced, came out, and there wasn't much fanfare. Another one was Daemon X Machina. Now, the sequel that was just announced looks super cool. I have yet to actually play this game, but this is one that took me a long time to find a decent price on. I think I eventually just broke down and bought it used. I'm not sure if it was from GameStop or where, but this was a exclusive game to the Nintendo. Looks a little bit like a Xenogears, but in an Armored Core style gameplay. It's more run and gun, not completely a shooter, but looked really cool. And then the sequel that they announced, Daemon X Machina, something like Gun Rift or whatever, actually looked even more interesting. It's a highly stylized mech shooting game, kind of has that Persona visuals feel or something of that nature, but a really cool game, and one that I think with the sequel coming out, people are going to go back and realize that there's another one, especially if the sequel does very well. That one could become very, very sought after, and with the Switch 2 being backwards compatible, why would you not want to pick it up? Now, another game that I had my eye on for a long time, and this was made by Special Reserve, not made, but released by Special Reserve Games. And Special Reserve Games, I think there's limited run, there's super rare, and then Special Reserve. I think Special Reserve was the bad one, or the one where you would send them money and maybe the game would come. I'm not quite sure. I didn't look into it all that much, but they did release a game that I was very much interested in, just based on a couple of screenshots and the name of the damn game, and that is Ape Out. So Ape Out is like a, I mean, you can download this as like a $5, $10 game. There is not a lot of content here. Basically, it plays similar to, say, a Hotline Miami, where you have a certain amount of hits, and then you have to go through these levels, basically just trying to get to the exit, and killing everyone in your path. It's a stylized art style where you are a completely orange ape, and then the enemies will be black and white, or just depends on what type of enemy they are. So there's shotgun enemies, there's gun enemies, there's enemies that just don't even do anything. There's some that pull out a pistol and run away from you. And you have to navigate through these levels while not getting hit 3 times to the end. And you get to a green door. Once you get through the green door, then that takes you to the next part of the stage. And each I guess each campaign, if you can call it that, they have it on like a vinyl soundtrack, and there's a side A and a side B, and each part usually consists of 4 parts. Once you get to, you know, the 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, the game will then save your progress, and then you go on from there. And then once you get to side B, not that there's any reason to have it be a side B other than maybe the stylistic choices, but each campaign has its own kind of genre to it. So the first one, you're escaping a lab. The second one, you're escaping a building, going down the hall. Like, that was probably the most creative one, because you're going down all these floors. So even though you get down to the next floor, it's a 30-story building, but you still only have 8 chapters. Third one, I think you're escaping a zoo. And then the fourth one, I want to say it was like a desert enclosure or something of that. Like, they all play almost virtually identically. You will get some interesting things happen, like the lights go out and then it'll inverse the colors, but then the enemies will have flashlights trying to find you. It's not a game that you're going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on, but is really fun, and one that, you know, you may not need the physical edition. I like the physical edition. Apparently only 2,000 of these things were made, and it was like $100 forever. And then finally, I think because the publisher went out or something, or the company that made them, they just were on Amazon for like $40. So I bought one. You guys might be able to still buy one. I liked it. I thought it was a good time. Definitely not a world beater, not something I'd spend a whole hell of a lot of money on, but if that sounds interesting to you, it is fun, and it's worth some fun time-wasting time. Speaking of time wasting, now this is a game that blew the hell up once the Game Awards were announced last year. Now, I'm not going to say that, it wasn't already huge, but it went from being a very popular niche title to then kind of getting world-round recognition, to whereas people like myself who pride themselves on being abreast of all the big gaming trends, was able to be like, okay, what is that? All right, let's try that out. And that game is Balatro. And Balatro is a surprisingly simple but fun time waster. Now, I know people will say it's not just a poker simulator. It really is just a poker simulator. However, it also utilizes a lot of fun mechanics that then allow you to alter the way those hands are played, as well as gives you goals and tasks in a roguelike setting where you can modify how your cards are played. So they have these things called jokers. So you can have up to 5 jokers, sometimes 6 jokers up at the top, and then each one of those will modify the results you play. So if you play a straight, the one joker will then say you can make a straight with both clubs and spades, or hearts and diamonds. So then making it easier, obviously, for you to do a straight. Same thing with flushes. Same thing with 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind. You can make wilds. You can make ones that are just big moneymaker bonuses. And then there's percentages with it where it's like, if you play this card, there's a 5% chance it can break. Then there's other ones where if you keep this card in your hand, it will then exponentially grow the amount of money, or like the amount of points you make. And the reason the points matter is that you have blinds as you go on. Think of them like high scores. So there's 8 blinds you have to go through, 8 big blinds, and then a boss character. It's all the same game, and each one has a different point score total you have to get to. In between rounds, you will earn money for how you did, either if you have a certain amount of discards, you have a certain amount of cards you can play. Think of them like in a 5-card draw, 7-card draw, where you can choose a few cards to discard them and then get replacement cards. You'll have an amount of discards you can do each round and an amount of plays each round. So you're not just playing one card. Though some of the bosses will mess with that, where one will be like, you can only play one hand type. You can only play one hand the entire time. So you got to get all your modifiers into one. And the game goes beyond the 8. So once you get beyond the 8, that's when you can get things that go exponentially into the stratosphere, where I'm not some mathematician. I don't understand it that much. And I got really frustrated because the best run I had, I was destroying. I was set on a path to really, really dominate. I had the blueprint Joker card, which is one of the best ones. It will copy another Joker. And then it asks you, once you beat the 8th boss, if you would like to continue or if you would like to stop. And I accidentally hit stop when I should have continued, because I probably would have gone super, super far on that hand. I digress. It's a really fun game. It's definitely, in my opinion, nowhere near what a Game of the Year thing should be. But as far as styles of games, there's a lot of this style of game that requires a lot more, it's kind of like a pick up and play version of a tactical RPG, or pick up and play of a, you know, a Metroidvania or this and that, but this one is very generic. It's a pick up and play of a card game. And for the most part, everyone knows and can understand how poker plays. This is something that even your non-gamer friends can get hooked on and enjoy. And, you know, for me, it was not a 300-400 hour game, but it is definitely a time waster. And especially on the Switch, since I've started looking more at the Switch games on my collection, there are a lot of time wasters out there, and this is one of the better ones. All right, moving on. So this was a game that someone actually mentioned in the comments last 2 weeks ago. I do have it. In fact, I'm a sucker for all these collections of older NES, SNES, Genesis games getting put on the Switch, and especially for this series, which has some of my favorite games ever, and that is the Contra Anniversary Collection. So this bad boy includes the regular NES versions of Contra Super C. It has the arcade versions. It also has the Japanese version of the original Contra, which has cutscenes and things like that that were cut from the North American release of Contra, I think partially because of chip shortages. And then it also has Probotector, which, if you are unaware, in parts of Europe, there, especially back in the 90s and 80s, there was a large kind of embargo on realistic blood and things like that for certain games. So Probotector replaces all the human characters with robots. The only other time I can think of a game that's very prominently has done this would be Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. In Europe, that is a game where instead of dinosaurs, they're robots as well. It's just a cool little thing to throw on. Yeah, it's just a ROM switch, but there's a little bit different to it. But overall, Contra is one of my favorite pick up and play co-op games. It is so much more fun with a friend. The 30-man live code that we all referred to as the Contra code growing up. It's actually called the Konami code because it was used in Gradius first. I even did a Noob Gamer where I had my wife go through and use the 30-man code in Contra, see how far she could get. And it's just a really fun pick-up-and-play series that then, if you go to the 16-bit iterations with Contra Hard Corps, yes, I say Corpse, not Core, and Contra 3, The Alien Wars, gets brutally difficult. Especially with Contra 3, The Alien Wars, you can't even beat the game all the way if you don't play on hard mode, which I think is a stupid thing for them to do. It seems to be the polar opposite of what they started with the first Contra with the 30-man live code, where anyone could beat it, to the point where the ones on the 16-bit became you need to be an expert to beat it. And I think, in my opinion, that's part of why the series ran its course, is it really made it so much harder for people to approach. And then Contra Hard Corps, the Genesis one, I've put very little time into it, but the little time I have put into it, I got absolutely destroyed. And so that really did not make me want to play much of that one either. But they're all phenomenal games and really, really cool to have in one collection to play on your Switch. Now, here's a game that I wanted to bring up because this is the last collector's edition I bought. And I always say I'm off the collector's editions, but when big things come out that you want to support, I always support getting the collector's edition if you want it and if you have the space. And that game we're talking about is Octopath Traveler 2. So I've spoken about almost all the HD 2D games now that came out on the Switch. This one was probably my favorite of the bunch. I like it more than the original Octopath Traveler in some regards because it has a phenomenal ending and it has a very, very just a much more fleshed out overall plot. However, I think I enjoy the music more in the first one and I enjoy the pacing more in the first one. But if you're going to ask me which is the better game, probably 2 is where I would recommend for everyone, just because there's so much more to do in it. The day and night cycle, having the different abilities shared between day and night with different characters. And then the collector's edition, I was not planning on opening. So this was only able to be ordered off SquareEnix.com, I believe. And God bless them, they sent the copy of the game separate of the goodies here, which, you know us collectors aren't opening it. Unlike the first Octopath Traveler, where it made kind of a stage, this one just had some pewter figurines and things like that for the 8 characters you can play as. So in my opinion, not as cool as the first one, but one I had not planned on opening until my dang cat, who is in love with plastic, started chewing on the plastic. And it wasn't like standard video game wrap where it's super close to the seam. This was more like, you know, heavy duty plastic wrap on it, and he just went to town on it, started ripping it, and like, you know what, fine, take it off. It didn't hit it the first year because I had it up on the shelf, but then I rearranged and added a new shelf, put it down, which I need to do an updated game room tour, guys. It's been almost 5 years now, and we have added significantly to the game room, so maybe look to that some point this year. Let me know if you guys are interested in that, because there's definitely some new things to show off. But Octopath Traveler 2, if you enjoyed the first one, is just that game with more nuance added onto it. They added some super abilities that really changed the dynamics of the combat, but it's really also more of the same in a good way. And I remember when this game got reviewed, how it got a 7, and a lot of people in the reviews are saying it is way better in every way than the first game, but it just evokes the first game. And I feel like this is such a disingenuous sentiment you get with some of these games that don't have the large backing of, say, an Assassin's Creed or a Madden or a Call of Duty. When I look at the differences between, say, even going back, Call of Duty, Black Ops, and Modern Warfare 3 versus Octopath 1 and 2, there is so much difference in 2 compared to those games. Yet those games, year after year, always get 8s, always get 9s, always, maybe not so much nowadays, but it just goes to show you, hey, you really can't trust anything you read in modern journalism, other than the fact that it's kind of like when I was a kid growing up reading the San Francisco Chronicle movie reviews, knowing that this guy only likes art house movies, and so he's likely going to walk out on the newest Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, so I should just go see it for myself. And that's kind of how these things go too. Just play it for yourself. Even my opinion may not line up with yours, but I'm not going to lie and say that the game is terrible if I think it's not. Or if it's a genre I don't like. Like, I'm not here talking about Street Fighter 6 because I know I'm not the right person to talk about it. But even if I did, I'm sure I'd be able to say how it plays as a game and how it lands as far as my reference point to the rest of the series, which, isn't that deep, but I have played 2, I have played 5, I've played, it's really just it, 2 and 5. Anyways, moving on here, we got a few more. So this is a game I'm bringing up just to give you guys a heads up, because there is a new version that came out that is much less expensive and I believe has the sequel on it. But for a while, this was a very expensive game. I picked it up on Amazon, I believe, and that was Salt and Sanctuary. So this came out in a time before everyone was doing Metroidvania, Dark Souls clones. So this was before Hollow Knight. This was one of the first ones, I believe. And it's called, once again, Salt and Sanctuary. And I haven't played it yet, but I've heard great things about it. And they just released a Salt and Sanctuary 1 and 2. I think it's through Limited Run Games. Yes, I know, you have to buy it from them. But it's so much cheaper. It has the second game on it. I've heard the second game is really good too. So really, it's just a public service to not buy this game. If you see this one out, or if you have it and you want to try and recoup your loss before too many people know the cat's out of the bag, go for it. I'm not about to sell mine just because I'm an idiot. I don't really play that game. Should I pick up the one that has a sequel on it? Probably. Will I? I don't know. But just wanted to give that out there. If you like those kind of hardcore, side-scrolling, Dark Souls-like games, check that one out. That one is one of the better ones out there, so I've heard. All right, here's one that still to this day has not gotten a US release. This was one of the earliest Switch titles to come out. That it was a digital only, and its big claim to fame was going to be it was going to do Chrono Trigger in 2017 or 2018. I did a review of this back in 2017, and the name of the game is I Am Setsuna. Now, to this day, this has still only been released physically out in Asia. However, you'll notice it's in English. There's an English version of it on the cart, even though the cart is in, in Japanese language. And it's still a fun enough game. I think the thing that really drew me down on I Am Setsuna is it's always funny. You think you would like to see a game that takes place in a snow setting until you actually play one that takes place in just one of those settings, and it starts getting a little overdone, as well as the nods to Chrono Trigger, instead of feeling like Sea of Stars did, where it really felt like a nod, but also the game had its own identity. In this game, it just felt like they were really trying to do a hollow impression of what they thought the audience would want. And, it'd be interesting to see if Square Enix made this game now. I feel like the development teams they have now have a little bit more of an understanding of kind of the genres with some of the better ones we've gotten, like the Octopaths, the Triangle Strategy, even the remakes, like they make Tactics Ogre Reborn. Not saying this is a bad game. This is still one worth having, and if you like having physical copies of RPGs and are into those old school RPGs, that's one you should pick up just to have it. You can find it fairly affordably. I think I bought that for like $30-$40. So yeah, I mean, you can get it digitally all day long if you want. I just like to have it physically, but it just, the characters weren't very memorable, the music wasn't very memorable, and the settings just got a little samey. But if you're itching for something that evokes those old school 16-bit feels, but has a, kind of an art style that's a little, very much late 2010s, there you go. Not the greatest recommendation, but it's not the greatest game. All right, moving on from that is a very, very fun, faithful remake that actually Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom totally used the art style from, but you gotta pick this one up if you haven't played it. And that is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, the remake. Now, Link's Awakening and myself have an interesting history. It was one of the first games that I covered on my Hated Gems series, where I go back and play games that I didn't like as a kid and give them a second thought, or a second go. And on Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, I tried to death to play that game, but it really just, I'm not a fan of playing games on handhelds. I'm still not. The Switch is really the first time, and then the Analog Pocket were the first times where I've actually really enjoyed using a handheld device. And so I would play Link's Awakening, I put it down, I then tried playing it again years later, I put it down. Finally, I played through it, really enjoyed it. It's not a perfect game, it's not my favorite, I still like Link to the Past, but it is definitely one of the big boys as far as the Legend of Zelda series goes. And this is just a faithful remake that really does it right. There's a cool Mario Maker-esque dungeon builder thing that's included with this, but it never really took off in the same way. At least we haven't seen a Zelda dungeon builder thing yet. More, they went into the Echoes of Wisdom thing where they had these cool ways you could break the environment. But just fun. One of the best Zelda experiences in the 2D style, which I love that old school Zelda. As much as I enjoy 3D Zelda, I'm still a 2D Zelda fan at heart. Love Zelda 2 as well. I'd love to see Nintendo finally dust off that formula, but who knows? We can't have everything. All right, last two here. So this is one that I actually, after the last Switch video, I put this one in because this was a fairly recent release. It was another indie darling that was huge. I knew nothing about it. I saw Limited Run kind of advertise it, saying this was out, and something about the art style or just the name of the game, I'm like, all right, you know what? I have a feeling that's something I should pick up, and that is Animal Well. And I am so happy I did. I have not gotten the level of freedom and less hand-holding in a game other than the game called Full Quiet that came out a few years ago that was developed for the NES, and I absolutely loved it. They had a port come out to the Switch and other modern consoles, and it's just so fun jumping into a game in the 2020s where you're just given no direction, but it's contained enough that you don't feel lost. Like, you don't feel like you need a map. You feel like you can figure out things in the background. Something as simple as there's a disc you can find that makes a ghost cat chase you, and then you find another disc throughout later in the game that you can replace it with that disc, but then turns out you actually want that ghost cat to chase you at some point. Because there's four, I don't want to get into too many, like that's the fun of this game in my opinion, is going into it knowing as little as possible. And so, and that disc thing you find in like the first 3 minutes. So it's just really fun. There's no real direct way where you can do a lot of damage in this game as well. It's not really about the combat as much as it's about the exploration. Yes, you do find weapons and there are ways to go around, but it's such a fun little Metroidvania that is self-contained, and I was able to beat it in about a week of pretty serious gameplay. I did put in some time playing the dang thing, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, this was one of the bigger surprises from just a blind buy from limited run games. Generally, I would do that, and they would be duds. This was probably one of the best ones I have taken a risk on. Not that it was a huge risk, like everyone was talking about it. That'd be like me saying I took a risk on the game Cocoon, I would imagine. Like, that's another one that I saw a bunch of people talking about. I'm like, all right, I'll pick this up. But, you never know. And that's one that I highly recommend picking up. That one's probably going to be hard to find. It might still be available to purchase, through some reselling areas or not. But I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And then the last game we're going to talk about. This is one that I never heard about. It was recommended by, I don't even know if it was recommended. It was just spoken about by RNG Gamer. I think it was in one of his hardest games he ever played list. And it immediately sold me from the premise. And that game is called Into the Breach. So this is a game that I think I could only find it as a European release. Maybe it had an NTSC release. Either way, doesn't matter. Won it physically. It's region free. Who cares? It's a damn sticker. It plays the damn game. That's all that matters. Sometimes I just get silly. So the way this game works is it is a, much like Balatro, much like these kind of games where it is a roguelike where you play small tactical matches that last 5 turns, and you have to just survive, and you have to prevent the insect enemies from damaging the buildings. And it sounds simple, but man, this game, he mentioned it being hard, and yes, it is. It takes from the XCOM mantra of overwhelming just odds that you need to overcome. And I played on normal mode. There is an easy mode, but I still played on normal mode, and I managed to beat the campaign. I managed to beat the campaign with 2 different sets of mechs, because what happens is you get a set of 3 mechs, and then you have one driver, and as you're progressing through the different islands, you can rescue additional drivers. You can get cores that allow you to unlock abilities in the mech, or you can find weapons or purchase weapons that allow you to add additional abilities. And the 3 mechs interact with each other in a synergy that you have to figure out. So the first one I played with, the standard ones the game comes with, is a mech that will fire a rocket that then will hit the guy in the center and then push all the ones around it out. Another guy will punch and do 2 damage. And the third one is just a cannon that will shoot 1 damage and then push. And you have to utilize these abilities to then, interact. And sometimes it makes sense to shoot your own guy into another one to do damage on them if there's no way to stop them from damaging a building. And as someone who loves tactical combat, there is a lot of trial and error in this while you figure out how these interact. But it's also supremely fun to be looking at the map and then figure out, okay, I have 5 enemies attacking buildings. How can I take this with only 3 moves? And then you figure out, oh, here's how I do it. And you do it sometimes in unorthodox ways. As well as enemies will show they're emerging from a new spot in the next turn. And you can go over them, or you can push enemies onto them to then also damage the enemy, but then block that enemy from emerging for another turn. Or if you block them on turn 2, they will not emerge on turn 1. So essentially that's like killing them for the price of 1 damage. And the way it works is your mechs get damaged and then heal between fights, but the grid does not. So sometimes it makes sense for your mechs to take damage instead of the grid, and vice versa. And then you have to worry about your abilities pushing the enemies into the grid, and sometimes the grid will resist, and it's great, and it's just, there's so much nuance on top of it. Even the part where you can move your mech and then reset its movement, but once you fire an action, if you've moved, say, a second mech, that one can no longer move backwards. So you need to remember these things. Now, there is a reset you can use, and one of the drivers you can find actually has the ability to add a second reset. And especially early on, I found myself messing that up all the time. And it does happen. But as well as it's hard to predict what the enemies are going to do until you get familiar with them. But overall, love playing it. When I played as the second squad of mechs, in this one, they really utilized using the electrical clouds. And the way electrical clouds work is that if you put an electrical cloud on the field and it's on an enemy, it will cancel that enemy's attack. Now, this squad had the ability to also add damage to that electrical cloud. So if they're stuck in that, that's 1 damage, and you can boost it up to 2 damage. One of the guys in this group could jump up in the air, drop a bomb that drops 1 damage and an electrical cloud, and then land on the other side. And then that pilot had the additional ability to be able to move again. So just this kind of thing was so useful. Another one had a rocket launcher that shot electrical clouds behind him and then hit someone in front of them and pushed them 1. So you could get in a scenario scenario where you have an enemy attacking a building here, and then you have an enemy directly in front of them that's about to attack a building, and this guy could shoot the cloud, stall that guy's attack, and then jump and hit the other guy and push him into water and insta-kill him. Then the third mech was this one who just pushed all four all ways, and you wouldn't think that would be that useful, and I got a warp ability. It allowed me to warp with another enemy. It's just the synergies you could find, and the, like, as far as someone who likes tactical gameplay, very, very fun, with a caveat. It does have a lifespan. You know, I managed to beat it twice. Each time you beat it, if you play all 4 islands, is about a 3-hour gaming session. I cannot see myself just going through and beating it with all, 10 different squads. At least not in a row. But this is another game that's it's a good time waster, a good time. Like, I could see going on an airplane trip, bringing this game and be like, all right, let's figure out how to use this new squad. I started playing with a third squad just to see what it was like, and one uppercut the guy in the air, and then they land behind you, losing in damage. Another one pulls someone towards you, and then the third one would shoot a square for 0 damage, but then does 1 damage to everyone around it, and then pushes them once. So that interactivity, I know I'm going too long on this one. I probably lost some of you guys, but really, really fun. If you like tactical gameplay, give this one a shot. Just don't expect it to be something that you're going to sit down and play for 70, 80 hours in a row, but it could be a game that you put down, pick up, put down, pick up, which I probably will do. And there you have it, guys. That is another 10 games you need to go immediately and drop all your monies for, just like the Switch 2, which, yes, I know I should have done a video on it. I don't know. I just didn't have the time. And yeah, I am going to get one. I'm excited. I've been kind of cool off Mario Kart lately, but Mario Kart World looks interesting. The Donkey Kong Bonanza game looks incredible. Like, you got to give it to Nintendo. They take such a simple concept. They've been doing all these open world games like Breath of the Wild, but now they're kind of adding the Minecraft element of terraforming it, going in there, breaking it down, being able to make everything destructible. Looks cool. Will I buy some of the upgraded games, like the upgraded Breath of the Wild, upgraded Tears of the Kingdom? I don't know. I'm not a frame rate person. I'm not a performance guy. Like, that doesn't bother me that much. Depending on the cost, if it's like $10, $20, I might buy one of them just to see how it is and let you guys know how it is. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the Switch 2? Yeah, it's expensive, but what are you gonna do? It's just. I'm going to get it. Luckily I'm in a position where I can. If you can't, I can understand. I'd be a little bit more frustrating. But anyways, thank you guys so much. Thank you for allowing me to make such a ridiculous video last week. Allowing me to make these Switch videos and talk to you every week. I appreciate you guys so much. We are closing in on 5,000 subs. I never thought we'd get here. God, spending so much time being stuck. I'm coming up on 10 years. So my 10-year video officially, even though this channel's been around since 2011 and I've been doing YouTube since 2009, this channel really got started May of 2015. So my goodness, in 10 years, going nowhere, and then the last year and a half basically just 3xing what I've been doing is so great. So I have all you guys to thank for that. So thank you again. As a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.